Hello, viewers. This is Dr. Qamar Cheema, and I have today with me Dr. Bakir Najmuddin. Dr. Bakir is a professor here in Islamabad in the National University of Science and Technology, and he's been teaching international relations. Thank you very much, Dr. Bakir, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Dr. Bakir, what I want to have a talk with you is today is about the Pakistan-Africa relations. And I also want to learn from you that how India is having an ingress in Africa. So I'm talking in a larger context, not in a particular context. So first of all, how has been your experience in Pakistan? I just want to know from starting from that and then moving on to this Pakistan, India, and Africa. Yes, please.
Uh, Good. I think to start with my relation in terms of my stay in Pakistan, it has been quite experiential. Experiential in the sense that I've been able to find myself in a way where I can integrate with the society because this is what we have learned in sociology, that when you find yourself in a different environment, you need to be able to integrate yourself, particularly because of the Islamic culture of the Pakistani. So it's much more easier for me to navigate my way within the larger community. And fortunately for me, most of my engagement is within the epistemic community of Islamabad or Pakistan as a whole. So for me, I think life is just as usual as if I'm in my country.
That's great. So, Doctor, my first question to you is that how do you see Pakistan-Africa relations? Most recently, if you know that Pakistan introduced Engaging Africa policy, which was, I think, introduced back in 2019. But it seems that Pakistan is normally not that much integrated with Africa as a continent. Whereas we have seen that India is very much integrated with Africa. Is this a right notion or observation? Or do you believe that no, Pakistan has got that ingress in Africa, just the India has got? So, what is your understanding regarding that, please?
I think there are so many dimensions to these questions you have raised, which is quite legitimate and valid. Number one, if you look at it from an historical perspective, Pakistan has always been very close to Africa back in the era of decolonization. So we cannot generally score out Pakistan as not having good relations. So Pakistan was so instrumental in the old decolonization, as just mentioned a few seconds ago. So you find Pakistan contributing to the emancipation of people in Southern African area, even in West Africa, particularly for my country, Nigeria. We've been so close. I remember that in a way that led to a formal recognition and formalization of diplomatic relations between Nigeria and Pakistan back. One of our great nationalist leaders, Sir Ahmadu Bello, visited Pakistan, I think in the 1950s, probably 56 or 57, if this correct. And it came and there was a lot of talks whereby the Pakistani judiciary were spoken to in order to help a new created country like Nigeria. So there were a lot of teachers moving from Pakistan to so many African countries, particularly to Pakistan, to Nigeria. There were so many missionaries. You look at the Tablighi. So, and I think this is one thing we don't recognize, the role of the Tablighi Jama in propagating not just Islam, but propagating the essence and importance of Pakistan. And I think you also, as a professor of international relations, we need to start understanding the role of these non-state actors in promoting the integrity, the sovereignty, the national interest of the nation. Pakistan has done, these non-state actors, they have done great in bringing about, letting people know what and where is Pakistan. Because, for example, when you meet a Tablighi person on the way, where are you from? I'm from Pakistan. Where are you from? And this is not just for Nigeria, so many parts of Africa. Besides that, you've seen the Pakistani military, particularly from 1960s, they have been very, very well, doing well in Africa, in conflict regions in Africa. So there are lots of things we need to talk about how Pakistan has been able to laid his imprint, his signature in different ways in Africa. Now, before 9/11, when you look at most of the universities in Pakistan, it is flooded by African students, whether it is in Islamabad, it is in Lahore, it is in Karachi, Faisalabad, different parts of Pakistan. But I think the 9/11 event totally changed the whole equation, which reduced the number of African students coming into Pakistan. And I think also in the area of, let's say, for example, in the agricultural sector, where people will come down to Pakistan to get some of those things that are needed, or the pharmaceutical industries and all of those things. But I think the government has not been able to tap well the potential of Africa. One. Number two, I found it as one of the nonchalant attitude also of the academia in Pakistan of how to build good relations with African countries. Number three, the media. The media in Pakistan will only wants to showcase the bad side of Africa. How many times do they talk about Africa on Pakistani televisions? I don't think none. So it is only when something bad happened, that is when you showcase. So it's that decolonization has not taken place even in the way we look at Africa, except for normal university. Tell me, where in Pakistan do they teach even a African language? Whether even if it is Swahili language, I don't think there is none. So I think there's a lot. On the other side, the Indians are penetrating Africa in a very large scale, very large scale. Of course, India is much more bigger than Pakistan, so we would not want to make that comparison in terms of the economic viability and economic capacity of India. So you find the Indian companies establishing themselves. This is not just of recent, but it has always been there. Prior to the independence and in the post-independence period. So if you look at the whole east of Africa, there are a huge number of Indians over there. Even in South Africa, we understand the rationale for that. In West Africa, you find Indians in the gold business, India in the food and food industry, India in the media industry. I remember, I think even in my country, we have Airtel, which is an Indian company in my country. So the Indians are doing their best, trying to extend their tentacles all across Africa. But I would not want to use this, I would be very rational not to use this as an argument comparing Pakistan and India on the larger scale. Pakistan, it's doing its best. Let me take, for example, the plus point of Pakistan in terms of peacekeeping mission. At least we should give glory, we should give credit to Pakistan in that area. And this is why I used to say that peacekeeping mission is an extension of foreign policy, which Pakistan must promote adequately, that this is what we are doing, that nobody can do better than us. We've seen how Pakistan was able to rescue even the American forces in Somalia back in the 1990s, and which there was a movie for that, The Hawk. So a lot has to be done by Pakistan, and I actually appreciate the last government of Prime Minister Imran Khan, what they call the Look African policy, which was also promoted by the then Foreign Minister Qureshi Saab. So there's a lot of things going on, but I believe this administration, if it will continue, can also continue that Look African policy. There's a lot to do about Africa. The Chinese are already there, no doubt. The Europeans are already there. The Russians are there. It is not about exploiting Africa, but having good relations with Africa, particularly my country, Nigeria, which is a gateway to Africa.
That's good. You have given a holistic picture of us that how Pakistan and India are engaged in Africa. And you are absolutely pointed out right that we have to come out of this post-colonial mindset because that's where we are just looking at things. But Professor, moving forward, what do you think that how Pakistan can engage more with Africa and Do you think that Africa has a capacity, or Africa can engage Pakistan? Because there is one thing which seems in Pakistan is that as if it seems as if this is a pariah land, pariah world, or where we will going Africa. So this particularly this stigmatization or this stereotyping is there. So how can we have more engagement with Africa, particularly Pakistan? What can you recommend on that, please?
Uh, in that way, there are lots to say, but I would identify two, three things. One, let me begin with the academic community, the epistemic community. For Pakistan to have a very wonderful relations with Africa, it has to begin in the classroom and using the pen. Not until you and I, the African, the intellectuals in Pakistan, the academicians, not when they start looking into Africa, the way the government made a policy. So how many collaboration do we have with African professors? Maybe zero, maybe point zero. How many universities are teaching African studies? Maybe zero. Though they say we have African area study center, I think maybe in Kaidaza, but I wouldn't know the in-depth and intensity of that. How many African professors do we invite here to Pakistan? And believe you me, we have about 50 plus or 40 plus countries in Africa. But so, and Pakistan is just one. So we are talking about so many countries against just one country. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it has to start changing the mindset, changing orientation, reorientating, socialization always begin, yes, at home, but largely in the school. So the professors have to do a lot. The professors also have to decolonize themselves. So we need a post-colonial thinking in how we deal with Africa. This is how I put it. We need a post-colonial thinking in how Pakistan should deal with Africa. But in my humble view, with the Pakistan epistemic community must start with that, because not just having area study center for Africa, but how much have you been doing vis-a-vis African study? I think I met with one of these professor, very aged professor in Cairo as I'm investing, Professor Roxana, I guess, who she's a little bit,
In the research in sub-Saharan Africa.
yeah, yeah.
He was the
So
professor, studied from
yeah,
Yale.
yeah, so yeah, that's true. So just one, maybe 0.0000.
But
So
I
the
think
first,
she came from Yale. That's why maybe she was studying Africa.
probably, so she had the opportunity to have the wider horizon about what she. So there are a lot of, in terms of African history, African. You see, I was also flabbergasted when some people say the Africans who have civilization. It means it is a lack of knowledge. It is lack of knowledge. The African history is there. The African civilization is there. The African medicine is there. The African sport is there. There are lots to do, lot to do. And even why Pakistani is still in the past, they still live in the past. The European continues to explore the intellectual heritage of the African. And I think Professor Ali Maswi, who passed away a couple of years back, did something on triple heritage of Africa. I don't know if you might have come across that important ideology of Professor Ali Maswi, the triple heritage, which says that Africa is an amalgam of three heritages: the Arab heritage, the European heritage, and African heritage of self. So it's a place, is a good place for research. And like I said earlier, the first step to building a viable and wonderful relations or growing the relation between the African continent and Pakistan is it starts with the academicians. One. Number two, the media. The media would need to do a lot and lot and lot. Now we have the social media, the alternative media. How much do we know of African? Even in your class, in my class, if you should ask a Pakistani student, how much do you know of Africa? They will only know those countries Pakistan play cricket with, whether with Kenya, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. And possibly maybe they might have some fragment of knowledge about Nigeria, Egypt. just little. So that's how we should start. So the media itself need to play a great role in trying to bring these two together, the continent of Africa and Pakistan. And number three is the government. The government is trying its best, but that has to expand. Africa is a potential economic gold mine. Is a potential economic, not in the sense of exploitation, but a potential economic gold mine. Take, for example, if Pakistan and Nigeria should have a better relation, we have almost the same population. And this is why people don't play with Nigeria, because we have about 220,000 or 220 million population, very close to and our GDP is almost maybe 1 point something above of that of Pakistan. So what I'm trying to say is that look at that potential that Nigeria possesses. Look at the potential of Egypt with 80 million plus, or the potential of Ethiopia, which is also another 80 million plus. So you find things happening. But I am identifying three important structure or actors in Pakistan: the academician, the media, the government, which of course, in my understanding, include the chambers of commerce. And these three, they have to play a very great role so that we can have a better and wonderful Pak-African relations. Oh, let's have a big conference. Let us start with that, which is just about African professors and Pakistan professors. Let's say we want to make it a yearly program. Then we can see the changes. And this exchange of knowledge, generation of knowledge, can actually uh, um, trickle down to the society, because
Yes.
it is intellectuals that mold the society. This
Well,
is my take.
Professor, I got it. Simply, you have made very wonderful points. I have a one last question, and but my last question is that we have heard a lot from media and from different platforms that India and China, they are competing or they are vying for interest in Africa. Do you think that this is a wrong observation or understanding, or do you think that because some of the people believe that Chinese are putting a lot of money and they think that Indians are also getting there and they're trying not to even match with the Chinese, but they are having an influence at least, or they're penetrating? How do you see this observation, Indian and Chinese investment or engagement with Africa, from this lens which I'm talking?
Yes, let me start with my theory. My theory is this: that the Western liberal world system is what I call the need-driven based system. Need-driven based system. The Western world will tell you this is what you need. You need a political change. You need this economic reform. You need that. But the Chinese world order, the imagined Chinese world order, in my understanding theory, is what I call the service providing world order. The Chinese will rather not impose on you. The Chinese say, what do you need? What can we offer you? We can offer you this. We can do this for you. Forget about all of these sing song of China debt, sovereign debt, all of those that perhaps, again, in our understanding, the Chinese debt is much more better than the Western debt, because the Chinese debt is a sustainable asset. So, for example, if China is taking over your property, at least that fund given by China, that loan given by China, will not turn into corruption, will not end into corruption. It is going to end up into an infrastructure that could be manifest, that we can see for a very long time. So that is a sustainable debt, rather than a debt taken from the Western world, which equals to what? Corruption. Now, when you now look at this from a Chinese and the Indian perspective, I'll be very frank to say both of these are trying to showcase what they have. The Indians do not pretend to be very compatible with the Chinese. I think they do not pretend. Like I told you earlier, you find the Indian as well providing services to different African countries. whether in the form of telecommunication, in terms of IT, things like that. So both of these countries are doing what they know how to do best in order to entice the African country. For example, India will not try to say we can give loan, never, but they can provide services. But the Chinese can give loan and they can also provide service. So you can look if you have to balance the the two. So China, like it's even before the modern incursion of Chinese into Africa, the Indians have always been there in Africa in different form. Whether in, but we know them as people who are very good in trade, who engage themselves in the gold businesses as well as in the wheat business, ATA. So China is doing its best. The Indians are competing, but this competition, I think everyone is quite observant, watchful that it doesn't turn into exploitation or yet another competition between two regional powers. Should I call it the Indians and the uh, Chinese? But I'll be very frank. I think the Chinese do have upper hand in Africa than the Indians. That is for sure. They do have the upper hand because China, we know, has this diplomatic political clout influence, which perhaps is now challenging the hegemony of the Americans or the Western world. So, how much less do we speak of India? Not to relegate or to relegate India, but still we have to give credit to whom it's due, and that's of course the Chinese are doing their best. Though people see some of the like we see some of the arguments in Pakistan that is China the new colonial masters? So this same argument is also going on in many African countries, particularly in East, South, and West of Africa.
Hmm.
That much noise is not mentioned. You don't find it in the north of Africa much, but you find it in the West, in the east, and in the south of Africa. And the Chinese are trying to kind of create an environment that we are not a new colonial master. We are just here to provide you our services. So the much talk about China, they don't talk much about India in that way. So you can understand. So when we now talk about a comparison between the Indian and China, so one is talked much about and one is less spoken about.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Professor Bucket, for helping us to understand the perspectives about of Africa and how Pakistan, India, China, and Africa they have different perspectives and arguments about these countries in Africa. So it was very rare conversation while having you because normally we do not talk much about Africa. We talk about South Asia, international politics. But thank you very much for your perspective and your time, please.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. Bye.